Guitar is not Mike, so I'll try to play a little bit loud. This is a song written by a friend of mine named Greg Dukowski. It's about a strike in West Virginia, and it was a hard, long strike. Snow is falling softly, and we sit around the fire. It's covering up the coal dust, weighing down the wire. You can barely see the picket signs in the misty orange glow. So we wrap our blankets tight against the Fayette County snow. It's nigh on 14 weeks now, the bosses wheel and deal. Nigh on 14 weeks now since we have had a decent meal. Barely got the bread to last another week or so. You can't feed growing children on this Fayette County snow. My daddy told me stories of the way it used to be when the Union came into these hills to set the miners free. They laid their lives upon the line to make the Union grow. They laid my grandpa's body beneath this Fayette County snow. Sending men with guns to force us back into the mines. Our leaders go to parties while we freeze out on the lines. If they try to make a slave of me, they'll sooner see me dead. And this Fayette County snow will soon be stained in red. Snow is falling softly as we sit around the fire. It's covering up the coal dust and it's weighing down the wire. You can barely see the picket signs in the misty orange glow. So we wrap our blankets tight against the Fayette County snow. Thanks a lot. I have recorded that with a nice violin player, and I'm going to be doing one of those Indigo fundraiser sites and trying to get the stuff out. So I've been recording this for 2 years, but we're ready to get it out, stuff like that. Put out. Here's one that I know you all know. I might do a slightly different version of it because it's 100 years since Joe Hill died. But you can sing along with the chorus that you know. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Said I, but Joe, 10 years dead. I never died, says he. Never died, says he. In Salt Lake City, Joe says I am standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. I'm the bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a Union soul. Says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. Standing there as big as life, Here's one that I wrote after reading An Act of State, the Execution of Martin Luther King. And I think King, as you know, of course, he did the civil rights and then he turned against the war. And one reason he turned against the war was because of this guy named William Pepper. William Pepper was writing for ramparts. And he went to Vietnam and he got pictures of children like that had been napalmed and things like that. And that's what convinced Martin Luther King to turn against the war. And then he invited Pepper to come to his congregation. And Pepper went on to law school, and years later, the family contacted him about this trial in 1999. And I was shocked that I had never heard of it before. I mean, I found this book in a library, and I had never heard of the book. An Act of State, the Execution of Martin Luther King. How many here have heard of that book? An Act of State, the Execution. Isn't that something? Put it by Verso Press. And I guess there's a reason I needed to do this song then. William Pepper was a young man when he first met Dr. King and read his war reporting on Viet children suffering. Martin asked young William Pepper to speak about the war, to come to his congregation, and they were friends forevermore. Then William went to law school to put his talents to the task, to fight for social justice, to answer questions we must ask. It was April 4, 1968, when Martin Luther King was murdered in the broad daylight. It was a devastating thing. There was a mighty rush to judgment, to blame it on James Earl Ray. There was agreement in the government to tell the media what to say. The media called it crime of hate, a lone, not simple thing. But now we know it's an act of state, the execution of Dr. King. James Earl Ray was just a patsy, an escaped prisoner for sure, with a top security identity for the whole 9 months before. Some rogues within the government shielded James as Eric Galt, gave him a car and a driver's license to secure him to the assault, to protect this petty criminal, to put the patsy into place. His handlers sent him to Memphis, where like a pawn he showed his face. Well, Martin marched for civil rights, and he stood against all war. He spoke for truth and justice and non-violence for sure. When Martin stood with the workers in solidarity with the poor, that high-class oligarchy hated Martin all the more. Earl Clark was one of the Memphis cops, meeting at Lloyd Jower's Grill, across from the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King was killed. 2 military sniper teams would have also fired if the police team from Memphis failed to do what was required. Next day, cops cleaned the crime scene, hauled the brush and the proof away. They avoided all the witnesses that might have some truth to say. Too many unanswered questions still blowing in the wind, in a murder investigation so deliberately ruined. Too many disturbing answers still came out in that trial, enough to prove conspiracy to a nation in denial. 6 white, 6 black jurors unanimously agree. The facts presented at the trial proved who really did the deed. Yes, it all came out in the trial that in '99 they won, when the government was convicted of the conspiracy they'd done. William Pepper was the lawyer who won the case in court. But when he went to the press conference, no reporters came to report. So here's to William Pepper, the King family brave and wise, for standing for the truth for us, for overcoming all the lies. William Pepper, keep on struggling, you know you're following the teachings and the vision and the dream of Dr. King. William Pepper wrote a book about the trial to everything, an act of state, the execution of Martin Luther King, an act of state, the execution of Martin Luther King.
Finishing up his book. He's done a bunch of interviews with NPR and so forth for Albert Williams, and you will hear the story of Albert Williams through my little ode here, or poem. So I'm going to start with Joe Hill. It's actually a poem I rhymed, which I think is pretty interesting. I just read it and I thought, oh my goodness, it's a rhyme. But all of you, welcome here. I know a lot of you will be performing, will be saying your poetry, and it's going to be an exciting evening. So Joe Hill was killed 100 years ago, anarchist or activist. He fought for us, and so they framed him for a murder. He was duly executed, an activist for 20 years, reviled and persecuted. His life was inconvenient for established institutions. His death left him a martyr for wobbly revolutions. Soon afterwards, or maybe sooner, the government learned to spy on folks like Hill or folks like us who didn't like to lie. Joe Hill might be forgotten, his words, his thoughts, his breath, but now, knowing how just his cause, we mourn a hero's death. So, thank you. Actually, I wrote a little bit more, but I don't think too many people will be speaking on Albert, and so I'm giving him a few more words. Albert Williams, born 1908 in October to... Thank you. Is a wonderful poet. I don't think I should be introducing everybody because I don't know that much about everybody to be equal, but she's a wonderful poet and writer and teacher, and she writes prose. She writes wonderful stories. She can make you laugh. She may not want to make you laugh tonight, but she has that incredible gift, and I honor her and love her for it. So, Judy. And many other things, not just that.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Well, I write a poem about Joe Hill. I read a lot of poems about labor, about working. I operated the machine that shrink-wrapped paper in clear plastic. The bosses were Jehovah's Witnesses, men pale as cheese, who sold Bibles door to door on Sundays. They were polite and assembled the crew one night to explain, politely, that all of us were unemployed by 11 p.m. No government contracts. The plywood office door pulled shut. No one knows who set the first wheel of paper rolling across the floor, who speared the soda machine with a 2x4, who winged unstapled copies of Commander's Digest so they flew with their diagrams of bombers through the room. Towers of legal pads collapsed. Fist-fired paper grenades hissed overhead. A forklift truck without a driver bumped blindly down the aisle, and we all saluted. If we knew any songs, we would have sung them. Saboteurs were unscrewing the punch clock and rearranging the parts like paleontologists toying with the backbone of a stegosaurus when the foreman arrived. his adolescent voice whining authority. He was my last job. The conspiracy to shrink wrap the foreman's head, turning red in a wrestling hold, was a failure. His skull was too big to squeeze through the machine, and even the radicals among us relented when his eyes steamed with tears. So we shrink wrapped the foreman's wallet, gleaming in the fresh plastic like a pound of hamburger. "Here's your wallet," I said, "and mine."
Oh.
This is by me, and it's called Resurrecting Joe Hill. Let's stop dreaming about seeing Joe Hill alive as you or me. And let's stop scattering his ashes all around the world. Why don't we get some wax and make an effigy of Joe Hill and dress it up in overalls and carry it from place to place? Let's take old Joe to every labor protest in the country, from farm workers marching in front of Ben and Jerry's store in Burlington, Vermont, to thirsty migrant laborers in California's Central Valley, simply asking for safeguards against dying in the heat. And if there aren't any protests by people that may need them, let's use our pretend Joe Hill to try to get something started. Send him to the restaurants to help cooks and waiters get a fair deal. Send him to the hospitals and the canneries and the mills and the mines. Send him to the refineries and the docks and the plants and the breweries. And if our fake Joe Hill isn't as good as the real thing, well, at least he can't be wrongly convicted of murder and executed. He can't die because he's not really made of flesh and blood. He can't die because our Joe Hill is just an idea we can keep alive. And an idea is something they can't kill if we don't let them. So maybe not here and now, but in the not too distant future, let's stop singing about Joe Hill and do what he suggested we do: organize.
John Curl and Mahmaz Badihian, is she here? Okay, good, wonderful. I'm kind of blind, all right. And then we have Jack. So that'll be our next little set. Thanks, John. And John is the author of many wonderful books and cooperative, collective literature.
So I brought a couple of poems for you today. And the first one is about the everyday world, which to me really, nothing is more profound than the everyday world. This poem is called Making the Invisible Visible. When we open our eyes, an extraordinary world unfolds, as natural as the sky, a tree, a baby's foot, a cat's whiskers, a cloud, a spoon, a ball, a sock, a kiss, a sunset, a smile. And when we open our eyes, a strange, unnatural world also unfolds, of landlords, employees, obedience, pollution, advertising, patrol cars, racism, sexism, capitalism, war. The daily carnage is the natural order. I saw it on the news. I read it in the paper. The expert said so. The system is in control. The deep security state rules. There is no safety outside of it. Narcissism equals love. Plutocracy equals stability. Opinion manufacturing equals freedom of the press. Criminals equal leaders. Murder is justice. Bondage is liberty. A puppet show is democracy. A man's place is to obey. A woman's place, a woman's fate is to agree. Abandon all hope. Comply or die, and only hell torment awaits. The Connie Barker berates those who stray beyond the gates of the circus tent. We become so accustomed, it all seems ordinary, normal. Yet it distorts every note, twists every word, delusion, confusion, perverting every truth into lies. The invisible world surrounding us, the world of everyday reality made invisible by our own minds. But reality is really not invisible. Reality is all around us, everywhere we look. Great truths in light, delight. Dissolve small truths, devolve lies. Great truths in light, resolve delusion. We disarm oppression in the world by first overthrowing it in our minds, by making the invisible visible.
Bravo, bravo.
Okay, so the second poem I have is a poem called Fire. The American economic system produces the greatest good for the greatest number, they say. But what if the system is on fire? Rivers are churning, poisonous rain, rodents are scurrying, forests enslaved, war crimes are flourishing, victims are blamed, Congress is burning, the White House in flames. American democracy, though flawed, is still the greatest in the world, they say. But what if democracy is on fire? Hyenas are stirring, innocents framed, politicians usurping, the bankers take aim, the undead concurring, the judges deranged, assassins conferring, the children are slain. America, right or wrong, they say, but what if America is on fire? Fire, the demons returning. Fire, our oceans ablaze. Fire, the blood moon is turning. Fire, our leaders insane. Never shout fire in a crowded theater, they say. But what if the theater is on fire?
I will read one Farsi poem so you get used to my voice.
Yeah.
And then I will read one poem in English. This poem is mine. شکل کسی نیست، شکل کسی نیست این لیوان که از لبهای تو بوی عشق نوشید و طرح انگشتانت را بر هیکل زرد رنگش تجلی کرد و من هنوز فرصت نکردم قطری از شراب یاد تو را نوش کنم از آن. دیروز تو بودی و من بودم و لیوان شراب، امروز لیوان و من، فردا خاکستری بر جا. I'm talking about impossible. I'm talking about impossible, like asking Apple to dance on a tabletop and ask thirsty trees in California to dig the earth for water. Impossibles are everywhere, like asking corrupted governments to divide the big cake between all of us, or asking priests or clergies to turn all the churches and mosques to a school. How much more can we can talk about impossibles at the time our dreams hanging from tree branches in a dark nights? Impossibles are everywhere. One thing but is possible. One thing is possible, hoping for change to come from breaking the genie in the capitalist glass. Is this really possible? Thank you.
Our wonderful poet laureate emeritus and beloved, Jack Hirschman.
Okay, you know, Rio Tinto is Red River, and this is a poem I wrote. Yeah. It's called A Red River. This so-called Rio Tinto Corporation definitely ain't, which has locked out 600 mine workers, many the children of those oaky grapes of wrath who blew into Boron, California to work at the borax mines 2 generations ago, and whose worker grandkids now are cut, backstabbed, locked out, and hurting, sucker punched by profit greed, out not merely of work, but replaced by no skill, any skill, numbskulls, scab bollocks. Dignity down the drain, fried like rotten eggs in the Mojave Desert sun. Soon the car will have to go, and it'll be a walking George destiny of homeless families, sleeping under newspapers, no way back unless and until even more union, as uniting so essential. Even more union, as the boss's bullshit is piled so high, you can land helicopters on the roofs of their lives. Even more union, because the unions are thunderbolt strength, the reason why Londoners like we here in San Francisco today are demonstrating at Rio Tinto headquarters in the UK for Californians locked out of their jobs. Because any workers dumped or robotically replaced points the accusing finger at the #1 disgrace, which is to have to eat the shit that comes from capitalism's filthy face, when what we're going to do is flush it down and restore the human race. My other poem is one I read a couple of weeks ago for artist for Francisco Herrera, the singer and activist who's come out for the mayor of San Francisco. And this is a poem I wrote. It's called Stepping Forward. Somebody stands up saying enough. Somebody steps forward saying basta. Steps forward. SF for San Francisco, stepping forward. This compañero, Francisco Herrera, who's begun it, this comrade in arms of the song that's going to rescue the people of this city from the brink of the brinks of the banks that are connected to the corporate estate bone, that are connected to the unreal estate bone, and the private property rat bone, and the rent sky high bone, and the homeless go die bone, and that's the working of the laws. The people's laws are human kindness and modesty among equals in loving friendship without the violence of money. estranging every neighborhood and every family and every individual in every neighborhood with threats of poverty or prison or the military. The violence of money, the competitive acceptance of its brutalizations, rooted in capitalism's racist economics, racist genderomics, racist culturomics, is what keeps one neighborhood terrified of another. But the beginning of the recovery of our city has begun its begin, the dance of resistance and the uniting of community with community through the stepping forward of the leaders in each, socially, politically, culturally, stepping forward. SFSF for San Francisco, joining hands in the long and really revolutionary struggle to overturn a system of shallow values run by amputators of human dignity, alienators of natural solidarities, and galvanized by the Herrera dream, the song of Francisco Herrera, to realize the People's Republic of San Francisco at last.
The unspeakable, I will split Jack Hirschman from Agneta Falk by placing two people that have wanted each to do a poem. So Agneta, you're going to, so I'm going to get, yeah, it just seemed like an appropriate place. Beg pardon? Offered to each do a poem, and that is Alice Rogoff and Margaret Cooley. So this might be a good time, right smack in the middle there. So if we could have you each.
This is a little story. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm told that low-income workers in Paris have been moved out of that city.
Read it to the mic.
I'm told that low-income workers in Paris have been moved out of that city. Alice goes to sleep and has a nightmare. Alice's nightmare. It is now the year 235, and there are no people who are not wealthy living in San Francisco. San Francisco is a large gated community with a moat around landlocked sections. In the center of the city is a castle where Mark Zuckerberg and his descendants live. They are called princes and princesses. Knights guard the bridges. Companies in Silicon Valley have moved their facilities to Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, and part of the bay has been filled in. Since there is no one to go to General Hospital or City College, they have been removed. People known as the serfs live in what used to be Daly City, and they are bussed in and out on trucks. The technicals have lovely apartments and restaurants, but they are seldom there except when they are allowed on their so-called Nouveau Valencia street break. But one young technical creeps out during her break to see how the serfs live. She hears guitar music, people talking to one another instead of through their brain-inserted phones, and sees people reading books. She falls in love with a surf boy, but she realizes he will never make the $10,000 a month rent on a studio apartment. She demands that he stop teaching kindergartners and work for Google. He refuses, and as they wave goodbye from opposite sides of the moat, they both slip and tragically drown. Alice wakes from her nightmare knowing there are rallies to go to and petitions to sign. She remembers her studies in neighborhood organizing and the struggles in San Francisco in the Fillmore and the Haight-Ashbury. She picks up her knapsack and heads over to the San Francisco courthouse for a hearing about City College.
The LaborFest writers, and we have an event next Tuesday evening at Bird and Beckett. Please come if you can to that as well. I was thinking about Bastille Day, and I was thinking about the general strike of 1934 was called on this day, July 14th, and then I was thinking about the events leading up to the general strike and thinking that was perhaps as close to a revolution as we ever came to in San Francisco. I don't know what you think, Steve, but I was inspired by that event in regards to Bastille Day, and I was thinking about Tilly Olsen because she was a journalist here at the time, and she covered that event, and she really captured the voices of the longshoremen. And so if you get a chance, read Tilly Olsen's journalism from 1934. This piece I wrote was inspired by Tilly. It's called Men Along the Shore. We're through sweating blood, loading cargo 5 times the weight we should carry, standing morning after morning screaming, men along the shore, like slaves in a slave market begging for a bidder. We'll be out, you'll see, we'll be out. And then hell can't stop us. Hell can't stop us. That was the meaning of the lines of women and children marching up Market Street chanting, hell can't stop us, hell can't stop us. That was the meaning of the seamen, the oilers, the wipers, the mastermates, the pilots, and the scalers. For years we were nothing to them, only nameless beasts of burden, but now we're solid, even if it means general strike. There was the moment, the first bruise in the hearts of those who thought they were our masters. Who started the violence? Who ordered the clubbing? Armed forces massacring unarmed? Get out of here. Get out of here. You sons of bitches, it doesn't matter, it doesn't stop us. We won't forget what happened today. Go on. Nothing can stop us now. Thank you.
Okay, the beautiful Agneta Falk, my Swedish compatriot. And then Gary Hicks. Gary, you here?
Gary's in the hospital.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is you
What happened?
Two. The first one is sort of off the cuff. So I haven't tried out the rhythm, so we'll see. It's in my genes. I mean, in my dreams. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, walking down the road. He said, what's up? I said, you said. Don't waste time on mourning me. Just organize and set them free, like a worker's bee. That's not as easy as you think. Beware of finkery. Beware of finkery. How many bees do you think it takes to reach some liberty? One is good enough for me to pass a message on, to pass a message on, and mean exactly what you say. It will soon catch on. Mean exactly what you say, and it will soon catch on. I dreamed I saw you here last night. He nodded, that's right. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night. He nodded, that's right on. He nodded, that's right on. Off the cuff. And this is so amazingly drenched in coffee. Not peat coffee. In fact, about 30 of my poems are drenched in coffee, and I think it looks rather attractive. And so the next poem is should call on Joe Hill and all of us to do something about it, and it's called The Ellis Act Blues. She was under the cover when the letter arrived. Her mother, 3 days dead. The letter of eviction. The landlord, her godfather. And she 30-something, and her entire childhood in that apartment. A year later, the inevitable, 2 days to go to final eviction. and 40 years of a parent's life still untouched. A kitchen full of cookware, books, photos, toys, clothes, and paintings. And she, paralyzed with fear, no longer caring of what will happen to it all, just wanting to get on that plane, that one-way ticket out and no return, leaving this city a little less quirky, a little less diverse. And so many with her, torn out of their warm beds, like Gung Ji Lee and husband Poon Hung Lee and their 48-year-old handicapped daughter, who were forced to put their entire life in storage, while callous greed Charlie stood panting at the door with insatiable eyes, almost pissing himself with delight at constructing yet another condominium for Google Glass Tom and Technomic. Oh, golden nugget of a city, basking in the glory of your rich palette of people and multifarious cultures, your quaintness, your tolerance of other, your aspiration to freedom and choice. Don't cyber yourself out. Breathe in, breathe deep before you tear yourself apart.
So much, Agneta. And yes, I did an intro, but I did have a poem for you folks and something for you to sing before I bring Renee Gibbons on to give a closure to this before our wonderful coffee intermission. What is a living wage? What is justice? I worked 12 hours a day in Nantucket one summer, opening and closing a shop 9 to 9 for $1 an hour, no breaks, no lunch, Sundays free. I slept on a broken cot in the living room of a rental shared with 4 older girls who had beds. I had no idea this was not fair. Yesterday I saw a man throw down his bag in disgust as a police car drove up to take him away. Did he have a living wage? Did he have a home? Where do we find our dignity? A key to unlock our own cages of disrespect. Children should be taught self-dignity along with the multiplication tables and spelling. The Constitution begins at home and rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Children should be seen and heard, loved and respected. The right to work for fair wages embedded in their sense of self. What is a living wage? What is a living idea? A living concept of self. Tomorrow does not vacate today, but lives within this moment, asking us to unlock our freedom, to walk with dignity, to expect and anticipate justice, that it may be a reality. Now, I have a song for you, and it's a pretty easy refrain that I hope you know. I always like to write these little verses with refrains. This is, together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Yeah, I know it's a lot of words and I should have passed it out. But anyway, you can do it. Together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. The news is cyclical, we know, the banks are in a spin. We all hate war, we all love peace. So where do we begin? Together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Earthquakes, fire and flood and riots devastate each land. Disasters may be human bred or nature shows her hand. Together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Email, Twitter, Facebook, friends, every day's a lesson. And everyone's a journalist an expert without question. Together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Democracy can be direct, who knows how many choices allow us to communicate and sing with many voices. The last one, together, together, we're in this world together. So here's my hand, let's save this land and prosper here together. Yay! So I would like to bring Renee up, but if there's anybody now that has a poem or something prior to her concluding Phantasmagoria, this is your moment. Okay, Renee, you've got it.
I was thinking about Bastille Day as well. Happy Bastille Day. I know we're honoring Joe Hill as well. But the French Revolution inspired us in Ireland to try a revolution of our own. So, vive la France. The song I'm going to sing it was a hit in Ireland actually, and my friend that I learned it from, Christy Moore, said the only good thing that came out of Maggie Thatcher's reign were the songs. This is called Ordinary Man. I'm an ordinary man, nothing special, nothing grand. I've had to work for everything I own. I never asked for a lot, I was happy with what I got, enough to keep my family and my home. They say the times are hard, and they've handed me cards. They say there's not the work to go around. And when the whistle blows, the gates will finally close. Tonight they're going to shut this factory down. Then they'll tear it down. Well, I never missed a day, nor went on strike for higher pay. For 20 years I served them best I could. Now with a handshake and a check, it seems so easy to forget the loyalty through the bad times and the good. The boss man says he's glad, the boss man says he's sad to see that things have got so bad. But the captains of industry won't let him lose. He still drives a car and smokes a big cigar, still can take his family on a cruise. No, he'll never lose. It seems to me such a cruel irony. He's richer now than ever he was before. And my paycheck spent, and I can't afford the rent. It's one law for the rich, one law for the poor. Every day I try to salvage some of my pride, to find some work so as I can pay my way. But everywhere I go, the answer's always no. No work for anyone here today. No work today. And so here I stand, just an ordinary man, like thousands beside me in the queue. I watch my darling wife try to make a better life, and God knows what the kids are going to do. Now that we've been faced with this human waste, a generation cast aside, as long as I live, I never will forgive. They've stripped me of my dignity and pride. They've stripped me bare. They've stripped me bare. They've stripped me bare.
There's a song I wrote called Full Spectrum Dominance. U.S. corporate killers want more weapons in space. space, they want to spy on you. Full spectrum dominance is the policy, making systemic violence and tyranny. Full spectrum dominance makes us all the enemy, but a better world is possible, this ain't the way it has to be. No, it's not paranoia, it's legitimate fear. The new world order is already here. We don't want to descend into a stinking fascist state. Better make some better history before it's all too late. Now the media manipulators make a false worldview, make the victims the aggressors, make the lies seem true, make a death and destruction from tax dollars spent, making ill-begotten billions over 1%. Full spectrum dominance is the policy, making systemic violence and tyranny. Full spectrum dominance makes us all the enemy, but a better world is possible, this ain't the way it has to be. They got the great historic jump on us by doing genocide. The Holocaust of Native Americans is still denied. Now depleted uranium weapons do the same to Afghans and Iraqis, and it's done in our name. They're banning demonstrations except in free speech zones. They're planning violations of what the law condones. You know human beings more than flesh, blood, and bones. Beware of those who joke about sending in the drones. Come on now, people, open up your eyes. It's time to stop swallowing all those cold lies. It's time to be aware and care, to be wise. Come on now, people, keep your eyes on the prize. The U.S. corporate killers want more weapons in space. They want full spectrum dominance all over the place. By land, air, and sea, and by satellite too. And all throughout cyberspace, they want to spy on you. Because full spectrum dominance is the policy, making systemic violence and tyranny. Full spectrum dominance makes us all the enemy, but a better world is possible.